like, let's trade special trade tonight. And I'm like, okay, so you come to my house, one trade, like guaranteed. Just one, that's it. We didn't do any more trades.
Well, I mean, the Magic Purple is a 2018.
Oh, nice. Shania's playing Pokemon now. But she has no idea how.
She's better than all of us.
So I gotta teach her.
Yeah, I'm not scared.
Ask Sean, don't ask this stuff. Ask Sean.
Sean?
She's really good at explaining. She explained it all in like 1 day.
Yeah, much better than saying.
I really need to switch these out with some of my other.
Chris, I remember the first time he was watching me do the weight. He's like, you hold this and it goes smaller, and then you gotta just throw it and hit it over.
That's what you do.
So I don't have.
It made no sense.
Alright, those Atlanta girls are so slow.
I thought they weren't coming.
Oh, they're not?
Do I do it blind?
They're not coming today? No.
Oh, Sean's parents are coming
You got purple.
to Augusta.
Yes.
When?
August 24th. I mean, August. Augusta, October 24th. 26th.
October 24th?
Yeah.
That's like,
It's
I'm in the same.
That's next week. No, 2 weeks next week.
They're trying.
So they're going there and then her parents are coming here.
Yeah. Alright, guys. Guten Tag. No, Guten Morgen. That means good morning in German. Is it German? Nobody? Speaking English? Nobody? I don't get it. Josiah, will you come sit over here? Alright.
Actually, Ezekiel, will you find the littles?
Oh, yeah. Can you go get the little ones? That's the guy I know later.
Oh, the littles.
We should call number 4 and number 5.
It's like Umbrella Academy. Don't watch that show. That show's
Oh, can you hear? Now can they hear me? Okay, anyway. The microphone is connected to the YouTube live. Can you see me?
ASMR.
Okay. 2 major things that are happening coming up. Ray, do you want to do yours first?
It's up to Sheena. Does he need to go first?
Okay, I'll go first. Okay. So next Sunday, we're doing something very special for some military guys. So Bo's mom, well actually Bo's older brother Price is in the military, overseas, Navy, right? And he's on a ship, he's actually on a ship. And there's a few of the guys in the military, they don't have any like family support. They don't get any like letters, they don't get any like presents for Christmas. They're, obviously they're out in the middle of the ocean. And so Price is like a leader over all these troops. So he gave us a list of these soldiers that don't have anything. And so next Sunday here, instead of like having a teaching or whatever like that, we're going to buy a bunch of materials. We'll already have them purchased. We're going to bring them here, and then we're going to put them in boxes, wrap them, write notes to them, and then we're going to ship them that week. Because it takes so long for that ship to actually, for them to actually receive, because they have to get to port, and then finally when they receive it, and they'll open it, and they've been doing this in the past. They did it with the SEAL team, and apparently for these guys, a lot of them it's like deeply meaningful for them. And so it's going to be kind of cool for this group. I think there's like 15 of them, just some like youth group in Augusta. Can't get all these Christmas presents and things like that. And the kind of things that they asked for are kind of funny. Because you'd think like, like we want knives, bullets and stuff, but they actually want like ramen.
Nice.
They want Oreos. They want Beyblades.
Oh yeah.
I need some adult guys.
Adult military.
We should
Yeah.
get away.
And do like those ones that like.
Yes.
So they want stuff like that. And then there's also one girl. And so we're going to get her something special. Like we're going to try to get some special things that she specifically wants. So Bo's mom is FaceTiming with Price tonight, and she's gonna find out some more details from him. But we're doing that next Sunday so that we can ship it off that week. Okay. So what we need from you guys, really simple. You guys don't have to be like super, I don't know, like in your notes, because you don't know these guys. You're just saying, hey, like, you know, we're really appreciative of you guys. You know, like, we hope that you have a really awesome Christmas, and you know, you just know that people are thinking about you in the States, and, you know, things like that. Just write something really simple. You know what I mean? And then we put it in their boxes, and they receive it, and apparently it's a real big deal. Because you kind of have to think about it in terms of like them being out in the ocean. Apparently it's super cold in the ocean where they're at. And it just means a lot to them, you know. It's not just like, you know, in the States if somebody randomly gave you a shoebox with lawn and Oreos. You know, it's like really meaningful to those guys. Does that make sense? So this is what we're gonna do next Sunday. Cool. And I'm probably gonna be shopping on Thursday or Friday. So if anybody wants to volunteer to help me go shopping by the Beyblades, you know. Right?
You ready, Sinead?
No.
All right, kind of late notice because we just got it cleared from church. We thought we were gonna do Hallelujah night this year because Corona and distancing and all that. But our teachers came up with an idea of maybe doing trunk or treat. So we're gonna do Hallelujah trunk or treat on September 31st. And what trunk or treat is, if you guys have never seen it, it's where you park in a parking lot, which we're gonna do out here in the Life Center parking lot. And we're gonna decorate our trunks themed. So,
Trunk isn't your car trunk.
yes,
Like our
your
own
car trunk. If you don't have a car, that's okay. But other people who have cars are gonna need help because as these trunks, not only are you gonna decorate it and your costume is gonna go with your theme, but also you're gonna have games there too. So you're gonna need another person helping with the candy and the games, the kids and all of that. So, I have some ideas, but I think we still need a little bit more time getting them up on the screen. So, the trunk or treat's gonna be decoration time or decorating your trunk is from 5 to 6. Pizza and veggies and some sort of drink is provided just for the volunteers. We're not feeding the kids this year. 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, the kids are gonna come through. They have to stay in family groups. And they're gonna go from one trunk to the next, ending with Ella's truck, which is gonna be the photo booth. Okay? So, we have a couple chunks of ideas that we need people to man, that we've already set up, but if you want to come up with your own idea, that's great too. For instance, Sheena, what's your trunk idea?
Among Us.
She's doing Among Us. Jenny, my teacher, she's doing Harry Potter. So it can be themed, but it cannot be scary. Okay? So if you want to do like we have some ideas that she is trying to get up on the screen. There are like monster themed ideas, but it's more funny and fun rather than scary. If that makes sense. But we're gonna do candy count station, but our jars are gonna be miniature, more of them, and that's gonna be Candyland theme. So we need somebody to take that. We also have it's hard to see them. So here are some ideas. Can you see them? This one's kind of like a face, like with teeth. It's like a monster idea. That one up there, on this picture at the top, it's kind of like fish, and it has like, the streamers are kind of like seaweed or something dangling. And then this is emojis, of course, Pac-Man. This is the Candyland down here at the bottom, where you got the colored spaces that lead to Candyland. Let's see. Some of them are specific. There's a treasure, like a pirate ship. There's Mickey Mouse. There's Minecraft. You can do Minecraft. There's all sorts of different ideas you can do. So, yeah, you can do Pokemon Go. What? So, I need to know decorations, are already provided.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cloud.
There's Noah's Ark right there.
Whoa.
In a couple seconds.
There's a snack bar.
Yeah, snack bar. There's a bubblegum machine, which is right above Noah's Ark,
That's.
where you see the bowls.
Oh.
That's a bubblegum machine.
I see that.
I think that top one over there is just like Harvest Festival type thing.
Thank you, Kimmy.
And then the one underneath it is like,
It looks like
Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
So, and then Jesus is my superhero, is this top, the bottom picture.
Mickey Mouse?
Yeah, Mickey Mouse is the center. It's his back end, I think.
Oh.
So it's his straw.
Do you have to make up the games yourself?
No, so we have a bunch of games like from Halloween night that we can incorporate, and do. So if you have an idea of what kind of game would go with your theme, then you can come up with your own game, or you can use what we have already. The other thing is that we will be providing some decoration supplies, but if you need something specific, you can bring it. So we'll have those big rolls of paper, so you can use that. We'll have streamers, we'll of course have tape, different colored papers, balloons. So if you need something specific, you can let me know, or you guys can just bring it on your own, to use for your decoration. The reason why we're having a Harry Potter theme is because one of my teachers, she had a birthday party theme of that for her daughter. So she has those decoration supplies, so that's what she's gonna do. So if you have something already at home, because of the younger sibling or whatever, then you can use that, as a decoration idea.
Right?
Yes.
If you're using like let's say it's a ball and you're throwing it into whatever a cup, how are you gonna clean those? Are you gonna clean after every person?
Okay, so we're gonna have hand sanitizer at each station, so when they leave, they hand sanitize. And then they go to the next station. It's a little too much, especially with some of the balls or the material that it's made out of, to try to wipe everything. There are some things that we can clean, like Ezekiel, if he still wants to do it. We're doing the back of the 15 passenger as fishing. So we're gonna do a whole fishing scene. And so the rod of the fishing pole can be sanitized after every use because it's a stick. But some of the balls, you know, like a tennis ball, that would be really hard to wipe up. And then one of our ideas is like the emoji. In the back of our van, we're gonna put a cardboard and decorate that, but it's gonna be the emojis, but spots that are empty. And one of the youth, whoever wants to do it, is gonna be that emoji, and they're gonna stick their face in, and the kid's gonna have a dodgeball and try to hit you.
Oh.
So if you have fast reflexes, that's a good game for you to play, to manage. So we have ideas that you guys can be involved with, or if you have your own, you can do your own ideas.
Yeah. Nice joke.
But we need to know this Sunday, if you can, to let us know what you want to do and if you can be involved. It's on the 31st. I think that's the day you guys are making. Or you have to be out of your house.
Yeah, probably.
So let me know if you can help. You can talk to me or Shine.
Do a race.
We have a race?
Yeah.
Well, that's in the morning.
That's in the morning, Bruce,
Very
on
true.
Halloween. It'll be in the evening time.
What day is Halloween on, right?
Saturday.
Saturday.
Oh,
It's a Saturday this year. So, any questions?
Oh, there's region.
Me and Chris are volunteering to do a Pokemon Go. So
I volunteer.
Okay, but you only have cars. So like, give one of your cars to somebody else to do something
I'm
else.
gonna use my
Unless you want me.
my Honda.
Someone can
Just
buy
one
my
car?
30 grand.
Yeah, use his little baby truck. There's not much you can do.
Ada's doing balloon animals. And so she's gonna be in the line with the family. We also need a face painter, and you're only getting like a couple items to face paint, and you're gonna be going down the line also
those days, it's really hard for me to like preach another sermon, like a different sermon, and prepare for 2 sermons in 1 week, especially since I work other than this. So what we're going to be doing for the next so many months is each Sunday that I preach in the adult service, we're going to have 2 of our folk, which is future OLC, that's our leadership training group, and staff share their testimonies. Now, the purpose of this isn't so that you guys come away being like, oh, I learned this deep spiritual truth, but it's more like, and this is what I want you to pay attention to, it's more like when they share their story, you probably identify with them in some way or form. You're going to notice that some of you guys look up to like staff, or you look up to folk, or some of these older people in our group, and you think, oh, they must have it all together. But when you hear their story, you begin to realize, oh, they're a lot like me, or they're kind of like growing into this ministry. They're able to do ministry, and that can happen for you too, right? So I know that some of you guys, especially those that are underclassmen or maybe middle school, you don't have any clue as to what your life will look like when you become older, when you get finally to college. But my prayer, our hope for our ministry is that as you guys continue to get older and older in the Lord, that you start to serve and start to volunteer. That you start to have your own ministry. I said I was going to talk about it this week, but I'm actually talking about it not next week because we're doing the military thing, but the week after, starting your own ministry in the sense of like every one of us has to have ownership as to like how we can be a blessing in our community, a blessing in our spheres, our school, our work, our families, and having ownership of that, right? So you look at folk, you see how much Chris volunteers, or Shine, or Sean sang, or Shania, or Jenna, or Josiah. They're like the backbone of kind of what we do, running a large ministry. That hopefully you guys say, oh, okay, that can be me. I can learn how to do that. I can serve. I can volunteer. I can mature and grow and be a blessing. That's the whole point. So when you hear these testimonies, put that into the back of your head as you listen to them. You're going to notice, oh, they're just like me. They're normal, or they've gone through things that are similar to me. I get it. Okay, so I need to start maturing and growing in that, so that I can eventually serve in the same kind of capacity that they are. Does that make sense? So this week I have 2 people that were sharing their testimony. It's Shania and Josiah. Okay, both of them are in folk. They've been in folk for a couple of years now. I think it's 3 years. Is it 3? It's been a while. And they've helped lead everything from every event that we've had, that we've ever done, because it takes a lot of help, a lot of volunteers. And they serve every week pretty much even now. So we're going to have Shania come up first. And Shania, if you want to take off your mask, you can stand back here. If you want to keep your mask on, you can stand wherever you want. If you want to take off your mask, you can stand back here. If you want to keep your mask on, you can stand anywhere you want. Okay, nice.
Okay, give me 1 second. All right. Hey, I'm Shania, like Howard said. I'm really nervous, but it's fine. So I have been going to AKMC for I think like 6 years now. I didn't grow up in the church. I don't think I like started taking my faith seriously until maybe like a year after I started coming here. And I came my sophomore year of high school, and I'm a senior in college now. And so when I was like thinking about like what to talk about for like today, I was just like thinking about the biggest ways like God has shown himself in my life. And like I talked with Howard about it, and like one thing that I think where he's made his presence known like very clearly to me is like when it comes to my struggles with being a diabetic. So I was diagnosed with diabetes at age 7. So it's been 14 years. And if you don't know what diabetes is, very quick explanation. It's just like my pancreas doesn't produce insulin. You need insulin to like break down the sugars and carbs that you eat. And so if I don't take it, I have to manually give myself insulin. If you don't do it, you can get really sick and you can like have complications or like die from it. And so when I was 7, I like don't really remember very clearly like the day I got diagnosed, but I do know like leading up to it, I was like super sick. My mom was, I remember like I went to the movies with my uncle and like I didn't eat anything and I was just like super thirsty and like I threw up and my mom was like, okay, something's wrong. So she took me to the hospital, and my blood sugar was like extremely high and they're like, okay, she has diabetes. And at 7 years old, like I had no idea what that meant. Like for me, I didn't like know how that would impact my life because I mean that's a really young age. I don't think a lot of kids know what that means. And so like I don't want to say I didn't take it seriously, but I was like a kid, so I didn't know what was going on. And so like growing up, it was mostly like my mom that had to like deal with my diabetes. And in the moment, like I was so focused on still wanting to be a kid and not really recognizing like that I had a health condition, and so I would still do things that I knew like, or like maybe I didn't realize the consequences of it later on. And looking back on it, like I could see how it was really frustrating for my mom. She just had to like deal with her child like being diagnosed with this condition that they don't even really understand. And so I know it's like really hard on her, especially seeing me do things that had like later complications and stuff like that. But as I got older, like I started like understanding and like learning what it meant to be a diabetic, what I had to do, and like realizing that I could still do the things that I wanted to do, but it just required me to take more care of myself. And so I like started developing better habits, but as I got older, there were still like some bad habits that I think like stuck with me. And so when I started coming to church, I think that was the first like time that I had to really deal with taking care of myself without like anybody, like any outside influences, because like when I'm at home, my mom was able to like stay on top of things, and then when I was in school, like I had to go to the nurse and make sure I did my insulin and check my blood sugar like for everything. And so like when I started coming to church, I was a sophomore, but it still was like a new experience in that aspect of like, oh, I have to like stay on top of things like on my own. And so that summer we had a mission retreat here in Augusta, and so what happened was I packed an insulin pen in like a bag that I like, it was like a separate bag from my suitcase, and I packed it because I like didn't have a lot of insulin left. And I put it in my friend's car, and she ended up taking her car to her mom's house. And I was like, okay, it's no big deal. Like I still have insulin left, and she's probably gonna get her car later. But then she didn't end up getting her car, and I was running low on insulin, so I started like rationing it out because I was not thinking clearly. And like I don't know if I don't remember if she actually got the bag or like went and got her car, but I know by then I was like really sick. And I remember like Sheena like took me to Walmart, and like we had to like, we were trying to like get like, because I was really dehydrated too, so we like bought like Gatorade and like ginger ale, even though shouldn't have not been drinking any sugar. Like I needed insulin, but I was like trying to get it because I was really dehydrated. And then finally we were just like, okay, I need to go home because we were here in Augusta, so it like wasn't a big deal to take me home to get more insulin. And so I got home and like explained to my mom what's going on, and she gave me insulin, but I was still really sick, and like I was not getting any better. Like I was still throwing up and stuff. And so she ended up taking me to the hospital, and my blood sugar was like astronomically high. It was way too high, and I was really dehydrated. And so they had to like hook me up to the IV so that I could get electrolytes or whatever. I don't know what it is. And so like I don't remember. I think I spent like a day in the hospital, maybe like that night and then the following day. And like one cool thing, like every time I look back on that situation, because it like was a really sucky situation, but like one way that I like felt really like loved and cared for like by my community is like I remember I was sleeping and my mom was like wiping my face with a towel, and I was like, why did you wake me up from my nap to do this? And she like didn't want to like ruin the surprise or whatever, so she was like, oh, I'm just cleaning your face. And I was like, okay, whatever. And I went back to sleep, and then when I woke up, like everybody from the retreat had came and like visited me, and I was like super like shocked and like surprised, and like it was just really cool and nice to like have everybody come and make sure I was okay. And like for me, it was like a really big show of like God's like show of God's love through my community. And so yeah, that was really nice. And then once I got better, and like they like were ready to discharge me from the hospital, I remember I like asked the doctor, I was like, hey, can I go back to the retreat? Like, am I good to go? And like he was like, yeah, if you stay hydrated and take your insulin. And like I didn't really ask my mom. I was like talking to the doctor, and she was like, you're not going back. Like, you need to go home and rest. And I was like, but I feel fine, even though I literally was like dying the day before. And so I don't know how, but she ended up letting me go back. And like I was just so like eager to get back and like be a part of it. I think all I got to really do was like door to door and like some construction maybe. I didn't get to do a lot, but it was just really cool to get back. And so that was kind of like my first experience on my own of like getting sick because I wasn't doing really well. And so from then on out, I was like, okay, you need to do better. Like, you need to like take better care of yourself. And like I was really like on it for a while, but it's like very easy to get like burnt out from it. And like I remember like talking to like friends and family about it, and like I understand from their perspective, because it's like you need to take care of yourself in order to like survive. Like, if you don't take care of yourself, you could die from this. And it's like, yes, that concept is correct, but also it's like really hard because it's on top of everything, like the stresses and like all of that, you have to like, even though these tasks seem like really small, like, oh, just check your blood sugar, take your insulin before you eat, it like can really like become overwhelming, I think. And so I started going through like a really bad period of burnout where I just like became like apathetic towards my diabetes. So like I really wouldn't check my blood sugar. I'd take insulin like after I ate and like hope it was enough to cover like what I had eaten. Like I really like wasn't doing well enough to take care of myself. And I think like that went on for like a really long time, like even up until maybe like last year or maybe like end of 2018. I think last year actually it was still bad. And so last year was like the really, I think, hardest year that I had to go through like health wise, because I got really sick. Like I ended up like losing a lot of weight. Anytime I would like stand up or something like that, I felt lightheaded, and it like seemingly came out of nowhere. And like when it first started happening, I was like really like beating myself up because I was like, okay, this is probably because you like hadn't been taking care of yourself. And when I went to the doctors, they couldn't figure out any causes, and like I was always scared to like ask them like, well, is it because of like, is it like a complication for me not taking care of my diabetes? So I wouldn't ask or like tell them how bad I was like actually doing. But then eventually I asked them, and like they said like it like definitely wasn't because of my diabetes. Like all of that could be a contributing factor, but it like wasn't because of that. And so like even with them telling me that, I still like really like beat myself up about it a lot. But just going through like those health issues and like not really knowing why it was happening, I like fell into a really like bad down spell. So like it wasn't just affecting me like physically, it was like taking a really big like mental toll on me, because I just like really didn't feel like myself. Like even if I was like around people, like I didn't feel like I was who I was before. I just like was always questioning like why I was going through this, and it ended up affecting like my spiritual life too, because like I didn't spend much time in prayer. I didn't spend much time like reading the word. I was just like so down about what was going on in my life and like not really taking anything to him. And I think when the couple of times that I would talk to him, it'd be like, why, why is this happening to me? Like, I think like a couple of times I even questioned like if he had abandoned me, because I was like, why am I going through this? Why aren't you like helping me like get better? Like, I don't know. It was just really bad. And even the few times that like I spent in prayer, like asking for like his help or anything, it just felt like his presence wasn't really there. And so that really like sucked. It was not a great feeling. And I remember at that last year's summer retreat, I was like supposed to, or I co-led with Sean for our small group, and there were days where I couldn't even come to like small group meetings because I didn't feel good. Like I would go back to the like dorms and just lay down. Like I didn't feel like I did anything, and like after the retreat was over, like I recognized that it was a spiritual attack, and like Satan just wanted me to feel like useless and like down and bad about it. But in the moment, like I think he was like really succeeding, because like even though I was clearly going through a lot, I was like, why are you like being so useless? Like, why can't you literally just sit here and talk? Like, why can't you do any of these things that you like were supposed to be doing on this retreat? And so that was like really hard, and I like felt like, not that like God was abandoning me in that moment, but like he couldn't use me because I wasn't like good enough in that moment. Even though like I knew that like he wasn't gonna blame me for like being sick, like not being able to do that on the retreat. And so that was really, really hard, and I didn't like, I just didn't know what to do about it. And so I remember I went to a friend that I had met at camp. She's also diabetic. I like counseled at a diabetic camp like a couple of years ago, and so I had met her there, and I like talked to her about like what was going on, about how sick I was getting, and how like because I was sick, like I was like feeling really burnt out again, and like how to deal with it. And she gave me this really cool advice that like really like sticks with me even now. But like how like as a daughter of God, like he wants me to live life to the fullest, and like that includes taking care of myself and feeling good, and like how like it's honoring to him like to take care of our bodies. And like it was really cool because I like had never thought about diabetes in that perspective. And so like when we talked about it, she was just saying how like it like is literally just a simple act of worship. Like if you decide to check your blood sugar and take your insulin that day, like if you don't feel like you can do anything else, if you do those things, and like you've worshiped him for that day, and it's like ultimately like glorifying to him. And I just thought that was the coolest thing, because I had never like thought about how like I could honor God with like something like diabetes. And so like even now when I don't like really feel like doing anything, like I'm like, okay, Shania, check your blood sugar before you eat, take your insulin, and like I'm like, okay, like that was your way to like do something for him today. And so that was really like encouraging, and I think it like had uplifted my spirits a little bit, or a lot actually. And so towards like the ending of the year, I don't know like really what happened. I think God had just or like I finally was like allowing him to like make his presence known to me, because I spent a lot of time in prayer and like wanting to like dive into his word, and I was like, Lord, even if like this continues on indefinitely, like I'm not gonna like continue to like believe that you're abandoning me, like, because obviously that's not the case. And I mean, I don't know what happened this year because the doctors never figured out, but I got like I just ended up getting better, and so like now I like feel fine. Like I don't suffer with any of the health issues that I had last year, and so like obviously that's a really big blessing from the Lord. Like the fact that even the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, but I just like started getting better without that, like it's just a cool testament of like how powerful he is. And so like looking back on all these experiences, like I can see how the Lord had been with me through all of it, even when I like didn't feel like he was there. Because like no matter how bad it got, like, or I like felt like it was the end, like he like gave me the strength that I needed to get through those moments. And like it wasn't even like I needed to like know that I'm strong, or like I needed to like do like for example, at this summer retreat, like I was beating myself up because I couldn't be like the small group leader that I wanted to be, like in my expectations. But the fact that I like showed up and like he gave me the strength to at least be there was like just a really like a testament to how powerful he is. And so I think like learning from all of this is like having to recognize that like he never like promised that he was gonna like give me a perfect and easy life, especially like with diabetes, but he did promise that he was gonna be my strength. And I think like as I still grow and learn, like taking that into account, like things aren't gonna be easy, but as long as I like keep trusting in him and keep trusting in his strength, like I'll be able to like persevere through that suffering. And so yeah, I think that has been like a really big blessing, because it's so easy for me to like look at my diabetes and be like, wow, like this sucks. But it's like, no, there's things even through the suffering and like the trials of like being a diabetic that like the Lord is teaching me. So that's my testimony.
Unlock my phone. Hey guys, so my name is Josiah Key, for those of you who do not know me. But before I start, I need to apologize for two things. One, I've been told that my examples get a little crazy and distracting. So I'm working on it, I'm doing my best, but if I do go on a rambling rabbit trail, just kind of be patient with me. And then second, I think parts of my story are interesting and fascinating, but it's my story. So there's going to be some parts of the story that are really boring or tedious, and it might not end with like a really dramatic climax, because I'm still living and this is my life, and these events happen the way that they did. So I want to start with a little small stuff about me. My name's Josiah Key. My dad is my youth pastor, and that's a little weird. You probably know my 4 other siblings. They're here all the time, and they're the loud ones. They're the like crazy ones that are always running around. And I was born right out of Nashville, Tennessee. Don't have a lot of memories because we didn't live there for too long while I was, really small. Ended up moving straight to Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. And lived there for, 6 years? And then I moved to South Carolina, and that's really where my story kind of begins for me, because that's where most of my memories are. So we moved to this place called The Village, and The Village, it was a trailer park. Now, unlike regular trailer parks that, are all garbage, ours was garbage. It was garbage, right? But unlike usual trailer parks, our garbage trailer park was in the middle of a ton of land, and that was really important for me. Only me, but me. And that's because I really love the outdoors. I love being outside. I don't know why I can't talk. I love being outside. I love nature. I love just hiking and walking through the woods. And that's kind of where my connection with God is strongest, is looking at even the small little insects, right? And most people think insects are pretty gross and disgusting, but unlike most people, I used to catch them. I used to catch insects and spiders and lizards and snakes, and that was my childhood. That's what I did in the village. And I had some friends, and they were really cool friends, but more about that later. And so I would go out and catch these animals, and this is where God kind of comes in the strongest in the beginning. And I was just, wandering around in this trailer park. There's tons of land and property, but nobody really owned anything. It was rented. So you could trespass anywhere you wanted. So we just like walk across people's yards, and I was with my two friends, and we were goofing off, and they split off, and I don't know where they went. They had something to do or something, and I was just walking along, and I was walking behind this person's trailer, right? Because that's what we did. And the security guard, because it was a not so nice area, we had security guards, and a security guard walks past me. Now, I had only seen them in cars passing me, they do their rounds and then they leave. And he passes me and he goes, "Hey, don't go that way." Now, naturally, everybody in this room, when you're a kid, you go, I wonder why. And he keeps walking. He doesn't explain himself. And so I'm like, I wonder what's over there. And so curiosity gets the best of me, and I start walking that direction after he told me not to. And I walk over there, and I'm looking around, and I'm not seeing anything. It's just the side of a trailer, right? And I'm looking around, and then I see this hole in Yellow Jackets just coming in and out of this hole. And I get this idea. Now, I gotta preface, I'm not the smartest guy, okay? I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'm not gonna say I'm dumb, but maybe as a kid I was. So I run back to my house as fast as I can, and I grab one of those small bug containers, right? The ones with the pop-off lids that you could put the bugs in and close it, right? I have this strap that you put around your neck, right? And so I have this around my neck, and I sprint back, right? And I got this bug container, and I'm like, how can I catch some Yellow Jackets without getting stung, right? Now, again, not the sharpest tool in the shed. So I wait until there's less Yellow Jackets coming in and out, and I wait until the last one leaves, right? And I'm like, this is my chance. So I open up the bug container, and I slam it onto the hole. And so there's Yellow Jackets spitting out into the container, bouncing off and bouncing in, and it starts to fill up. And I'm like, oh crap, I don't know what to do. Because if I let go, they'll all come spraying out. And there's a constant flow of them coming into this container, filling up the container more and more, right? And so I can't slip the lid in and then move it because the Yellow Jacket spray will just come shooting out and start stinging me. And so I'm kind of panicking at this moment. Now, I am 11, okay? So I'm not too big, not too bright at this moment, right? And so I'm like, I don't know what to do. Now, I have stopped the traffic of Yellow Jackets coming in and out. I wasn't aware of this because I wasn't thinking, right? And so I'm holding this, and there's Yellow Jackets coming in, right, and leaving. They're checking out, they're checking me out, and they're not stinging me. They're checking me out, and then they're leaving. And I start picking up this buzzing. It's not the buzzing in the container. It's buzzing out here, right? And so I start like, what's going on? And I look up, and there's literally a swarm. In my mind, it was a tornado of Yellow Jackets. This monstrous cloud. You know those cartoons where they have the thunder cloud when the guy's all mad? That's what I had with Yellow Jackets. And they're just swarming around. And I'm like, oh no! But I can't let the container go, right? And they start darting into my head. And they start stinging my whole body. In my back, starting with my head. And they just start stinging me, right? And I start freaking out. Right? And I start yelling and screaming, and I made the mistake of letting go of the container. The container flops down, and they shoot into my face. So now I have Yellow Jackets swarming around me, and stinging, and I'm just screaming my head off. And I fall to the ground, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is the end. And I black out. That was my thought process. I thought I was gonna die, and then I blacked out. Being stung from head to toe, eyes, nose, everything, just being stung. Now, I looked up on Google, and they said the average hive is from 5,000 to 10,000 Yellow Jackets, depending. You can get up to, they said the really big ones, are up to 1 million workers. Now, I have no idea how big the Yellow Jacket nest was, because it was in the ground. So I didn't see any of it, right? But, and for those who are wondering, because I think this is interesting, they can sting multiple times. So they weren't just stinging me once and dying. And so I wake up, and it is now dusk. This was in the morning around 9-ish when I passed out. I woke up, and the sun is setting, right? I'm laying on the ground, and there's no more Yellow Jackets on me, but I look at my hands, and I look like a balloon man. They're just all swollen, and I remember not having any energy. Like it took willpower and energy to lift up my head off the ground. And I try standing up. I try to get my legs underneath them, and they're not moving as much as they could. They're really stiff, and I'm trying to move them, and I'm on my stomach at this point, right? And I'm trying to move my legs, my knees underneath me so that I can stand up, and I just can't do it. I get a little bit up, and then I just fall over. And so at this point, I'm crawling on the ground, and I have no energy. And it's what I would assume, like, the really old, nothing against old people, but the really old, like 90-year-olds that are like, I'm always in pain. Like that's how I felt, right? In that moment. I'm just crawling and I'm asking God, give me the strength and the energy to call for help and get out of here, right? And I try yelling, try screaming, and I can't, and my throat really hurts. And I think it's because I was yelling so much. And so I'm just crawling on the ground like an army character, right? In one of those movies. And I'm just like, pulling my body and sliding my body, not using my legs at all because I can't, right? I'm just sliding along, and I hear footsteps behind me. I'm like, oh, yes, someone can help me. And 3 people, I see their boots, right, step in front of me. And I slowly look up, and it's my childhood bullies. And I'm like, God, like, if I could quote scripture at that age, it would be, God, God, why have you forsaken me, right? Because it's like, if my day couldn't get any worse, right? My bullies, right? These are the people that pick on me and push me around and call me names, right? They grab my arms and I'm like, oh no, because I can't fight back, right? If there were wolves, I would have been like, just take me now, right? Because I have no energy. I can't fight back. I felt completely helpless and alone. And these bullies grab my arms and legs and they carry me gently to my house. And I was like, wow. It was so out of character for these people. And they were like 15, 16. They were huge to me, right? They carried me to my house. And they knocked on my door and were like, hey, there's something going on here. Because they didn't know. They passed the Yellow Jackets and nothing, right? And so they took me into my house and they sat me down. Now, my parents, not that they're bad parents, but they're over here. They don't take me to the hospital for any reason. I've had multiple injuries. The only time they've ever taken me to the hospital is I broke my arm. That's it. And so I remember, instead of going to the hospital, my mom sat me on the toilet, and I remember dozing off and waking up in pain, and my mom is plucking with tweezers, just plucking stingers out of me. And I look myself in the mirror, and I kind of scare myself because I'm so bloated. And I'm just like this. And so if there's anything that I took from that moment, right, was not only did God not forsake me in those moments where I was completely terrified and completely alone and thought I was dead. I thought I was going to die. God helped me. These bullies, it was completely out of character that there's no way that it was just like, oh yeah, like these kids could have cared less about me and they could have kicked me to the curb or do whatever they wanted. But they didn't. And God helped me. For whatever reason, God helped me. So, for the title of my story, I would say it's Overcoming Obstacles. And I just want to continue into like the years after that. I moved out of the village at age 14. And this is right before freshman year, not quite a freshman. I'd homeschooled until 8th grade and then went to kind of like a homeschool school. It was a private Christian co-op. I went 2 days a week and got homework for the rest. And like my life was pretty good, you know? Got to goof off with my friends. We'd throw spears, catch snakes, do whatever the heck we wanted, right, in the woods. And then we moved out of the village, and that was because the village was closing. And it was kind of like the end of my childhood. And I go to freshman year, and it's a new town, new house. There's like barely any woods. I'm all disappointed because I love the woods, you know? And I go into high school, and I'm super nervous, I'm buggy, because I have no idea what's gonna happen, you know? And there's always those like voices in the back of your head where you're like, oh no, I'm gonna be the worst in the class, everybody's gonna make fun of me, and I'm gonna tell you now, that all those fears came true for me, and it sucked. And the reason is because I have what I claim, I always tell everybody I have dyslexia, but it's not actually a type of dyslexia. And it's basically where I stutter and whenever I get nervous, but whenever I speak and stutter, either in front of an audience, which I'm doing pretty good so far, but reading and any kind of like speaking, either speaking publicly or reading and writing. I'm terrible with spelling. I've always been terrible with spelling. And then just like stuttering. My mind kind of jumbles everything because I have a sequencing problem, and it's a learning disability. And so they threw me in with the rest of the kids. I don't know why I wasn't in special classes. I wasn't in high school. And I remember going to English class. I was dreading English class because I've already taken English classes. And every time it was the same. The kids would make fun of me. Teachers would kind of roll their eyes and go, sit down. And that's always the most disappointing for me, is when people would make fun of me because of something I was really trying hard on. And my high school basically sucked for me. I'm sure other people had better times, but like I got into a really bad depression because it got so bad for me, people making fun of me and goofing off and like laughing at me, that like I got to a point where I wanted to commit suicide. I didn't, but I had suicidal thoughts. I haven't hurt myself, I haven't done anything to myself, but I had those thoughts because of how bad it got. And I dreaded high school so much. I dreaded going there, I dreaded coming back from school and having to do homework and work on presentations. And it got so bad for me that like I just wanted to give up. And the one person that kept me going was my best friend. Her name was Pamela. If you know me or have known me for a little bit of time, you know the backstory. But Pamela was my best friend. And she was the one person that I would text or call or talk to after school, and I would just like pour out my problems because she was a great listener and she was there for me. And she was my best friend. She had been my best friend for years. But throughout high school, I started developing feelings for her. Through all the misery and pain, she was like the one bright spot in my life. And I started developing these feelings, and so I like was super scared, but I like texted her. I was like, hey, like, why don't we date? And Pamela wasn't like in my school. She lived in Mexico, 2,500 miles away. So this was a long distance relationship, but I was fine with that. And she had feelings for me too, and so we started dating. It wasn't anything official or anything because I couldn't like take her out. And throughout high school, we just like continued like, you know, little cutesy texts like, hey, I miss you, or oh, you look really good today, or something like that. Something that kept me going through all the misery and people making fun of me and, you know, throwing stuff at me. And like I had a really miserable time, and I barely had any friends in high school. I think it was only until sophomore year where I really made a friend in high school. And in sophomore year, I ended up meeting a girl in art class. And in art class, you know, it was one of my favorite classes because I love art and I love painting and I love, you know. And she was in color guard. And so I ended up meeting 50 girls, and they ended up talking about me and talking to me. And I don't know about you guys, but I've always been more comfortable with deep talks and personal one-on-one conversations about deep issues. And these girls, being high school girls, were very into that. And so we used to have these long conversations and talking, and I would tell Pamela about it, and we would be, you know, discussing things back and forth, and it was awesome. And I finally started to have friends in high school. And then junior year, I had a different classes, a different lunch, and they kind of like faded away. And it was horrible. Like I still had like one or two of them, but like my friends were gone again, you know? And so you might ask like, okay, well, where does God come into this, right? And I would say it was because they left that I had a deeper reliance on God. I was actually kind of a nerd, and I would listen to audiobooks, and one of the audiobooks I would always turn on when I was alone was the Bible. And so I would listen to the Bible while in school, while kids were cussing and goofing off and doing whatever the heck they do, right? And I was always like the oddball and the weirdo. And so making friends really wasn't easy for me. And that's where my reliance on God came in. And my friendship with God kind of continued. And it was really helpful, but also it was kind of hard. All of my relationships have not been easy. I've always had to work on them and work on them really hard. And God was not an exception with that, especially because a lot of times I was like, God, like, are you talking to me? Like, can you hear me? You know, because you always have those moments of doubt. Like, God, can you actually hear me? And so I kind of continued with my life and just assumed, and I went on retreats and mission trips, and there's tons of crazy stories, but, you know, I won't go into that right now. But, like, God was there every step of the way. He was there when I was stung by 1,000 yellow jackets, or how many, right? He was there for me in high school when I had nobody else to talk to except for Pamela. And she wasn't there all the time because she had school too, you know? And God was there the next step. And the next step was going through problems with Pamela. A little bit of backstory, I'm going to speed up. There's a lot more details. But basically, Pamela and my relationship wasn't very good. And it was great in the beginning. We had a great time. And then she like would fade out for a month or 2 months, and she'd come back. And I was always confused because we'd like text and call all the time. And then like she came out and was like, hey, like I cheated on you with 2 different guys. And that was a huge blow to me because I was like, I share everything with her. I could trust her with anything. And so, you know, being a high schooler, I was like, okay, well, I got to deal with this. And so I was like, okay, give me a little bit of time. You know, I want to talk to God about this. And so I discussed it with God, and I felt like God was pushing me. He was like, hey, like, forgive her. Forgive her even though you don't want to at this moment, that you just want to, you know, get rid of her and move on with your life. And so I forgave her. And that was really hard. I didn't feel like forgiving her. I didn't want to forgive her, but I knew that was best. And I kind of felt like God was telling me to forgive her. And it was really hard. And then she, you know, we moved on with our relationship and continued. And then my uncle started getting really sick. And this is junior year going into senior year. My uncle gets really sick, and he's got cancer. And he's got these cancerous growths, and we don't know, you know, what's going on and how he's going to, you know, pull through. And he ends up, you know, fighting this long battle and ends up not making it. He dies of cancer, and we go to his funeral. And that was really hard for me because I wasn't super close to him, but it was one of the first family members, and I did feel a connection with my uncle. And obviously I love my uncle, you know. And he had just gotten married, and so it was a really heartbreaking situation. And again, I just had to deal with it, and I didn't know how. I was really feeling terrible. It was really, you know, it was really hard on me, and we ended up coming back from the funeral, and it's wintertime. It's like 40 degrees outside, and we open the door, and I immediately have a problem, and that's because the inside is just as cold as the outside. Now, that wouldn't normally be a problem, but since I was a kid, I've owned a python. Now, I know, gross, snake, right? But this python was my childhood pet, and I had had it forever. And I don't know, there was something great about having that pet. It wasn't like a dog, it wouldn't like come and lick me, but like I loved that pet. And something happened with the temperature. And pythons are cold-blooded, and so they can't last, especially with huge temperature changes. And she's out. She's in her tank, but she's all stretched out, and there's already rigor mortis, she's dead. And so I do my best. I take her, and I'm trying to warm her up, but I wasn't thinking logically. And I'm just like crying over my dead pet and crying over my uncle. And like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, God, help me. I need your help because I feel so alone. I feel hurt. Like, I don't know what to do. And then I go and I talk to my parents a little bit. And, you know, the one person that I want to talk to about all of my problems and all of my suffering is the one person that's always been there for me, other other than God, and that was Pamela. And so I call her on the phone. I'm like, hey, like, we really need to talk. And she's like, okay, like, go ahead. And I start like pouring out my heart about how much hurt I'm in and how much pain, and I just don't know what to do. And like, my pet's dead, and my uncle's dead, and I'm just sobbing. I'm crying out. And she interrupts me. She goes, hey, I'm seeing another guy, and I think I'm going to go and start dating him. And then she hangs up the phone. And I'm just crying out in misery. And I'm like, why, God? Why? Why would you, first off, not fulfill my prayers of keeping my uncle alive? But why would you let something like this happen to me? You know, there was no warnings. There was no, oh, hey, Josiah, by the way, be ready for some hard times. It was, deal with it, right? And I just started crying out to God. I remember going to sleep, when the sun was coming up. I just stayed up crying and weeping, and I wrote some poetry. And that's when I started writing poetry to deal with some of my issues. But that's really when my depression kind of started coming in. And I felt depressed and didn't have a lot of energy to do anything. And I ended up graduating high school, and I don't know, I get stuck in this funk of pain and misery. And I hated it, and I still hate it, and I'm still in it. And throughout that, God has kind of continuously been there for me consistently. I blamed God for a good year and a half for like not only not letting me continue to be in a relationship or saving my pet or warning me about any of this. And so I blamed God, and I was like, God, why? Why have you done this, right? Why have you let this happen? Why didn't you just magic a solution, right? And I realized a lot of the problems and a lot of the issues were not because of God, right? They were not God's fault. They were issues and problems that I had with myself and issues that I had with my life that were going on because of sin. Just the basic run through. God gave us free will, so we're not robots. And from that free will, we have a choice, good and evil. And with both, you have consequences. And so I do not blame God anymore for my uncle having cancer or my pet dying or my failed relationship that broke me apart, right? Because that was a natural reaction to the sin. And if there is no consequences to sin, it is not sin. So that's kind of logically how I run through that. But to wrap up this, basically, trials and tribulations will come in your life, and you won't see them coming. And there is one person that will be there. It's not Pamela, it's not me, it's not my dad, right? It's God. God will be there for you. All you have to do is call out, God, God, please don't forsake me. Please be there for me. And the rest of it is some luck, some joy, trying to figure it out. I have a quote from, his name's John Eldridge, and he's the author of Killing Lions. And the quote goes, "There is a life you can love, but it takes courage, perseverance, and a little bit of cunning to get there. It takes a warrior." So that's John Eldridge. And definitely suggest that book for any of you note takers out there. But it takes a little bit of courage. And it's not easy facing those fears. But that's my testimony.
Close us in prayer.
Okay. Lord, thank you so much for this time. Lord, I pray that me and Shania were able to speak a message that spoke to people and that we will learn, all of us will learn from these upcoming messages and messages in the future, Lord. Lord, that we will be your hands and feet, and that you will teach us what you want. Lord, guide us and lead us. Help us through these trials and tribulations. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks, guys. You guys are dismissed.